Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
Hi, welcome to another ColdFusion video. The biggest tech companies wield a lot of power these days. They're some of the most valuable companies in the world, but it's easy to forget how quick and meteoric their rises have been. Facebook, Google, and Amazon were all founded after 1994, while fellow tech giants like Apple and Microsoft, who seem to have been around forever, were only founded in the mid-1970s. But while money brings power, this new breed of global leaders has much more than just money or power. They have your data. It's a relatively new commodity, and the rise of technology has given these companies unprecedented information about us. Now, data is perhaps the most valuable commodity in the world. Nowadays, a question is being asked: are these companies able to responsibly handle such power? And do they have too much power? And among growing fears of the tech giants' influence of power over the population and the market, there's a growing movement to break up the big tech companies. So what have the tech giants done to get to this stage? And what does the government plan to do about big tech? And how will this affect all of us? This is the war against big tech, and we'll have all the answers in the following video.
You are watching ColdFusion TV.
Generally speaking, competition is good. It drives companies to innovate, reduces cost, and produces better products as they compete to be the consumer's first choice. Ultimately, the consumers benefit from this. However, if a company has too much of its share of the market, it can use this to its advantage, squeezing out smaller competitors or only using this power to unfairly manipulate the market in its favor. The classic old world example is a big supermarket chain putting the local mum and pop stores out of business.
It's one of those times where everything must go.
As they say, all good things must come to an end.
For 45 years, we've been a small mom and pop hardware store.
In its story, similar to many other small shops, the big boxes just kept pulling customers away.
Due to their size, they can buy products cheaper and then ramp up prices later when there's no competition. This is called antitrust, and it's the main reason why there's a government war against big tech. However, other factors such as the power that companies have over the population and the sheer control of everyone's data are also important motivating factors. Facebook's power to discriminate on free speech has been argued to have impacted on the development of political ideologies within the population.
Even Mark himself has said that he and the Facebook team have too much power over speech. Facebook does have a board of directors, but Mark owns the majority of the shares. Unlike the leader of a democracy, there are no checks and balances on Facebook. Mark has no boss, and he cannot be fired.
Further to this, scandals like Cambridge Analytica have exposed the ways that Facebook monetizes people's data. But it goes further than this. Recently, Facebook has announced their own currency in the form of Libra coin. It's been met with strong reactions by both the public and regulators. Extrapolating into the future, the integration of Libra into Facebook services could see the company gain direct control of the most fundamentally powerful asset that we have in society, our money. For most of the world, money is a matter of eating that day or going hungry, so one can understand the reluctancy of people to allow Facebook, a private company, to control not only our data, but our money too. In this early stage, a lot of people say that it's not going to happen, but really it could be as simple as Facebook and their many corporate partners offering 50% off anything bought with Libra coin. Facebook will then take that loss. Such a move could be enough to get early adopters to join, and then the momentum and critical mass could follow shortly after. And this isn't to mention the primed readiness of developing markets. Imagine this: you're traveling to a country, but you end up being rejected because of your social media posts. This happened to an individual traveling to the United States in August. Now imagine that you become denied your ability to purchase goods with a Libra-style coin that everyone now uses. Perhaps you violated Facebook's terms of service on hate speech. It would really be a new world, and you can clearly see why some people are calling for action.
You know, this is a $20 bill. Do you know who can use a $20 bill? I believe the answer to your question is anyone.
Everybody can use a $20 bill. This $20 bill doesn't discriminate on anything. You could be a murderer, you can say horrible things, you can say great things. This $20 bill can be used by every single person. But quickly, who gets to use Calibra and Libra? Can Milo Yiannopoulos or Louis Farrakhan use Libra?
Congressman,
and I bring that up because both those two individuals have been banned from Facebook.
So this is a question that is really important to get right, Congressman, and we haven't written a policy yet.
See, and that's what concerns me. I love what you're doing, but when we say we at Facebook are going to set the social policies of who can use this cryptocurrency, what I fear is maybe in a roundabout way, what's happening in China with their social scoring. You get the right social score, you can get a loan, you can get an apartment. Maybe Facebook is doing the same thing here, where if you meet our social standards, that's the way you access the network. So we have to conform our behavior to the standards of Facebook to be on the network, where I think the right answer would be, listen, everybody, if you're abiding by the law, has access to this system.
Apple is in the middle of a class action lawsuit for inflating prices in its App Store, as it's the only way for people to buy apps on iOS. We've talked in depth about Apple's case in a previous episode, and as you've seen there, this could really put them in trouble. Meanwhile, Google and Amazon's listening technology in the form of Google Home and Amazon's Alexa have sparked inquests into whether that data is being used for advertising purposes, or even worse, recording private conversations. Imagine the leverage you could gain over someone if you recorded everything that they ever said. Google is also under fire for using its market position to favor its services over other competitors. For example, favoring Google ratings over Yelp ratings in their search algorithms. And while all of these accusations are going on, Amazon has been accused of killing other companies with unfair practices. Now, big tech companies have all this power, so are they going to use it for the wrong reasons? And further to this, is this all too much power for any one company to hold? The United States government does think that these companies have too much power, and they're going to go to litigation war over this.
Google about to find itself at the center of a major antitrust investigation.
More than 24 states to announce a coordinated antitrust investigation into Google this afternoon. Now, the focus will be on whether large tech companies have engaged in behavior that stifles competition, restricts access, and harms consumers. Now, they're making this announcement in front of the Supreme Court, which appears to be sending a message that they are not going to back down from this fight. I'm told this will be a bipartisan effort.
Two bodies hold the authority to carry out antitrust investigations in the United States. These are the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC. Right now, they're engaged in a discussion to decide who will carry out the inquiries into big tech companies. At this stage, it appears that the Department of Justice will carry out the Google probe, while the FTC will investigate Amazon and Facebook. Proceedings are already moving quickly against big tech. YouTube was recently fined $170 million for violating children's privacy. Facebook was fined $5 billion in a record FTC statement over their privacy practices. To make things worse, it was recently revealed that Facebook exposed 400 million phone numbers of users. Amongst this backdrop, a fleet of attorneys general launched an investigation into Facebook and Google, starting on the 9th of September. The case will cover potential harm to consumers from Google's impact on digital advertising. The fate of all of these investigations and outcomes is very complicated, especially with the layers of legal process. The FTC, for example, defines a monopoly as a company with a market share of more than 50%, and in the case of big tech companies, this may be difficult to determine. For example, Google has a minute share of the cloud computing market, but they're certainly the first choice in terms of internet searches. Google has already been fined $5.1 billion by the European Union for breaking antitrust. As for the rest of the cases against big tech with the US government's legal armies, Google has mentioned that they'll be cooperating with the government, but Facebook so far has remained silent. Only 41% of the public said that they trusted that big tech companies will do what's right for their users and the economy. The fact that people lack the trust in these services, yet still find it hard to leave, is perhaps one of the greatest signs of overwhelming power that these companies have amassed in their control of the market. There are many possible outcomes from these investigations. The most realistic is that the big tech companies will hire an army of lobbyists and lawyers to fight any resulting cases. In the end, if any wrongdoing is found, they will be slapped with some fine and new regulations may be put in place, but all will be forgotten in a few more years. But what if this doesn't happen? What if these companies are actually broken up? What will this mean for you? Well, this is a complicated question. In the past, companies were relatively simple. Take the example of Standard Oil. It produced and sold oil. Its market share was massive, so when it was broken up in 1911, it was simply divided up into 34 smaller companies, each with their own production facilities and networks. But how do you break up a complicated company that just doesn't do one thing? How do you break up Google or its parent company Alphabet? They do internet search, advertising, consumer electronics, cloud computing, online services, and much more. Where are the lines drawn? Well, FTC Chief Joe Simmons has recently said that he's ready to break them up if necessary. He's on the record saying, quote, "It's not ideal because it's very messy, but if you have to, you have to," end quote. His agency has opened its Facebook investigation, and if it's required, undoing Facebook's previous mergers and acquisitions might be a reality. That means letting go of WhatsApp and Instagram. Undoing these mergers, while extremely complicated, might reinvigorate competition, allowing consumers to benefit. Increased competition in the instant messaging market is arguably dominated by Facebook Messenger, Instagram Messages, and WhatsApp Messages, which are all owned by Facebook. Now, if these entities were separate companies, they would have to try and compete by spending more money on developing their product or decreasing the number of ads to make their app more appealing. And that's a good thing. They'll now have to put in the effort in order to make a better product. Usually with more competition, consumers win. There may be some disruption though. Imagine if YouTube had to be split off from Google. Right now, YouTube isn't profitable or it's just breaking even as it stands, so it's possible that YouTube as a standalone company might collapse on its own. No current litigation is focusing on a monopoly on video sharing, but it's just an example of how landscapes could change. So what does this all mean for you and me? It could mean a great shift in our relationship with large tech companies. We're at the stage in history where we're seriously questioning the intent of the companies, which we raved about for so many years. The companies that brought us the internet in all its glory. The companies that brought us the tools that revolutionized society. We're asking the questions of what is considered fair in this new technocratic landscape and just what it means to have too much power. We're starting to realize the value of our data and what it could do in the wrong hands. But more importantly, we're now writing the rules about how big tech should behave. With such rapid advances in technology and most of these companies going from startups to world leaders in a matter of a couple of decades, we may only get one chance to write the rules. So, who do you think will win the war? Big tech's lawyers or the government's fleet of attorneys general? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out the ColdFusion Podcast and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to see more stuff on science, technology, history and business, there's plenty more where this came from on the channel. So anyway, that's it from me. This has been Dagogo and you've been watching ColdFusion, and I'll catch you again soon for the next video. Cheers guys. Have a good one.